The hiss of the espresso machine drowned out the early morning news droning from the tiny radio on my workbench, but my pulse was louder than both. My prototypes, sleek, palm-sized thermal regulators, glowed faintly under the lab lights, their micropumps cycling like steady heartbeats. Today, the patent office would decide whether those heartbeats were officially mine. Ever since I was a scholarship kid at Cranfield, I'd dreamed of holding a patent stamped with my name, Margot Teller. Not Margaret, not Maggie. Margot, the girl who soldered circuits between classes and drafted claims during dorm room pizza nights. I'd spent 2 years perfecting my design, 6 months fine-tuning the filing language, and the last 84 days refreshing the online patent docket like a gambler waiting on dice. A final chirp from the espresso machine snapped me back. I poured the thick, dark liquid into my chipped mug, the one that still bore singe marks from my first prototype catching fire. I blew across the surface, glanced at the screen again, and there it was. Updated status. Office action issued. My hand trembled as I clicked. The PDF bloomed across the monitor, full of bureaucratic grace notes. Paragraph 3 turned my blood cold. Claims are rejected under 35 U.S.C. Section 102 as anticipated by prior art. Rejected. All 27 claims. Every elegantly worded sentence I had agonized over. Anticipated? Prior art? Impossible. No comparable microfluidic regulator existed, not with my adaptive thermal algorithm. I scrambled down the references cited column, heart-hammering, until one line burned my eyes. Spirally Dynamics, provisional filing 63,998,211. Spirally Dynamics, the conglomerate whose boardroom I'd stood outside of 3 months earlier, nursing lukewarm water, while their Rand D vice president chuckled about garage inventors with delusions of grandeur. They had kicked me out in under 10 minutes. And now they claimed my design as prior art? How had they even learned the specifics? My voice memo from that day echoed, "Never show a full deck to a shark unfairly." I'd shown enough, obviously. I sank onto the rolling stool, knuckles white around the mug. Rejection letters from journals I could handle. Peer reviewers' polite savagery was a rite of passage. But this? This was theft wrapped in legal stationery. My invention, my ticket out of overdraft fees and late-night ramen, was now a footnote in Spirally's empire. A dull throb started behind my eyes. I set the mug down, opened my engineering notebook, the cloth-bound one with oil smudges on the spine, and flipped to the page where I'd sketched the first iteration. Dual loop coils, graphene microchannels, and the phrase, "Heat is a story. I write the ending." I traced the pencil lines as if they were fault lines in my hope. Why did they always find a way to write women like me out of the story? I forced a long breath and lifted my phone, one missed call from my twin brother Asa. Perfect timing. He was halfway through a postdoc in patent law at UCL, researching gender bias in grant approvals, a brutal mirror for my morning. I hit dial. He answered on the first ring. "You got the decision?" "They said prior art," my voice cracked. "From Spirally." A hissed sigh. "That's not prior art. That's corporate espionage. They probably filed a broad provisional the second they smelled your demo. Did you use any non-disclosures?" "Of course," I said, pushing angst through gritted teeth. "But an NDA only deters honest people." Asa swore softly. "Okay, listen. The office action isn't final. We can respond, narrow claims." "Narrowing means conceding they got there first," I snapped. "I didn't spend 2 years so some boardroom hyena could slap their logo over my diagram." Silence hummed. Finally, Asa said, "Then we fight. But fights cost." Cost. The words stung. My savings account balance this morning had been £15 and a scattering of pence. The prototypes alone had maxed 2 credit cards. Spirally had infinite lawyers. I had overdraft notices. I rubbed my temple. "Let me think. I'll call back." I hung up and stared at the rejected claims. Suddenly, the lab felt too small, the walls pressing. I stood, shoved the window open, and let London's spring chill bite my cheeks. Across the street, shops rolled up their steel shutters, commuters hurried to the tube, oblivious. The city was indifferent, But it had taught me resilience. Every unpaid internship, every sexist remark disguised as mentorship, every late-night debugging code while classmates partied, each had sharpened me. I closed the window, grabbed a fresh sheet of drafting vellum, and paced. My mind ticked through strategies: appeal, protest, rally venture capital, all uphill. Then a phrase surfaced, something Asa had mentioned months ago over coffee: provisional patent shotgun. File multiple provisional patents covering incremental variations. Create a thicket. Competitors must license or litigate. A provisional required no formal claims, just enabling disclosure. A blueprint of potential. Fee? £70 per filing if done electronically. I glanced at my prototypes. Spirally's consumer gadgets spanned smart wearables to climate-controlled phone cases. All used similar thermal principles. What if I mapped my algorithm to each of their products, filed provisional after provisional? I could effectively patent pending their future releases. A legal chokehold. It was audacious, borderline reckless. Exactly what Spirally had underestimated. I dropped onto the stool and pulled the keyboard closer. The USPTO site blinked patiently. I cracked my knuckles. First, I opened a fresh document titled Adaptive Microfluidic Thermal Regulation in Wearable Electronics. Then another, Dynamic Heat Dispersion in Portable Communication Devices. And another. My fingers flew, weaving technical descriptions, diagrams lifted from my own CAD files, and algorithmic flowcharts. Each disclosure unique, yet rooted in my core tech, enough to anticipate their entire product roadmap. Hours blurred. The sun clawed its way higher, then softened toward noon. I paused only to sip cold espresso, shoulders aching, mind luminous. By 3 o'clock, I had 13 provisional applications queued, covering everything from augmented reality visors to baby monitors with temperature feedback. Filing fees? £910, money I did not have. I stared at the total like it might shrink. It didn't. My thumb hovered over submit. I needed capital fast. A memory flickered. The startup pitch night at the university incubator, tonight at 7. Winners received a £1,000 micro grant. Enough. But pitches closed at 5. I checked the clock, 15:42. No slide deck, no rehearsed spiel, but desperation sharpened creativity. I stuffed my prototype, notebook, and a spare battery pack into my backpack, powered down the bench, and sprinted for the door. The tube ride to campus was a jittering blur. I rehearsed in my head. Open with the heating algorithm's impact. Show the prototype regulating an ice cube's melt, close with market potential. Easy, right? Except my palms were slick, and my heart hammered like a misfiring engine. At 16:57, I burst into the incubator atrium, breathless. A dozen founders queued to register. A harried coordinator eyed me. Name? Margot Teller. Deck? I swallowed. No deck. Live demo. She sighed but handed me slot number 11. Presentation started in 10 minutes. I ducked behind a banner, yanked the prototype from my bag, and pressed the power switch. The LED failed to glow. My stomach flipped. Battery dead? I fumbled with wires, too frantic for finesse, and the connector snapped. A wave of hopelessness crashed, but I had solder tools in my bag. I crouched, stripped insulation with my teeth, twisted copper, and flicked my lighter under the joint. Smelly, sloppy, but the LED blinked green. I exhaled a laugh bordering on hysteria. Then the coordinator announced, "First presenter, you're up." The crowd's applause echoed. I wiped flux residue on my jeans and forced my shoulders back. I wasn't ready, but readiness was a luxury. I watched the first founder pitch a blockchain pet care app with glossy slides. Investors nodded politely. Second. Third. My number approached like a guillotine. Sweat trickled down my spine. I reminded myself. I belonged here. My tech wasn't a gimmick. It saved devices from thermal death. Finally, presenter 11, Margot Teller. I walked onto the stage, throat tight. The spotlight blinded me. Microphone in hand, I took a shaky breath. Imagine your smartwatch could sense when your skin overheats and cool itself in milliseconds. I tapped the prototype. This does that. I set the device atop an ice cube resting on a glass dish. The cube steamed. The LED pulsed. Adaptive microfluidics. It reads thermal load and redirects heat fast. I flipped to my only slide, a graph of temperature versus time. Current wearables throttle performance at 45 degrees Celsius. My regulator keeps them at 37, sustaining battery life and processing power. An investor leaned forward. Patent status? My pulse quickened. Utility patent pending, I lied smoothly. Additional provisionals filing tonight to cover integration across consumer devices. I felt the words solidify into intention. Questions peppered. Manufacturing cost, market entry, exit strategy. I answered with crisp, practiced fervor I didn't know I possessed. When my 3 minutes ended, applause felt thunderous. Backstage, I collapsed onto a folding chair, adrenaline spent. The final presenter rapped. Judges filed out to deliberate. Founders clutched water bottles, eyes darting. 15 minutes felt like eons. I tried not to calculate the provisional filing countdown. Finally, the coordinator returned with envelopes. Third place, £500. My ears rang. Second place, $750. My heartbeat synced with the rhythm of names. First place, £1,000. Margot Teller, Adaptive Microfluidic Thermal Solutions. Shock pinned me to the chair. Then I stood, legs wobbling, and accepted the envelope. Camera flashes popped. Investors shook my hand, but all I saw was the submit button waiting at my lab. The tube ride back was a dizzy carousel of hopes. By 1934, I was at my bench, entering card details, grant funds, plus my last credit card. I pressed submit. One by one, 13 confirmation emails chimed, each a provisional claim staked. I exhaled, body slack. Yet a new fear crept in. What if Spirely saw the filings and retaliated? I checked the time, 2011. My phone buzzed, a call from an unknown London number. I answered, heart sprinting. A smooth baritone. Ms. Teller? This is Julian Markham, counsel for Spirely Dynamics. We need to discuss your recent USPTO activity. My mouth dried. I'm listening. I believe you're aware your filings overlap with proprietary technology under development at Spirely. Our board considers this an aggressive act and insists we resolve it immediately. Are you available for a meeting tomorrow 9 a.m.? Resolve? Aggressive act. My vision narrowed. I'll be there, I said, voice steady though my knees shook. Excellent. Bring any counsel you deem necessary. He hung up. I stared at the dark phone screen. Tomorrow, I'd step into the lion's den again, but this time with claws of my own making. I rested my hand on the prototype, its LED glowing like a single defiant star. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. You would think adrenaline alone could keep a person awake for 24 straight hours without food, but there's a difference between alertness and lucidity, and somewhere after midnight I started hallucinating faint chirps from patent office inboxes that were, objectively, silent. I finally abandoned the pretense of sleep around 3:17, brewed industrial-strength coffee, and laid out my battle plan across the scarred pine table that served as both dining area and circuit testing station. Ace's flight from Heathrow landed at dawn. We'd agreed by text that he'd come straight to my flat, armed with case law printouts and whatever courage he believed big sisters possess in unlimited supply. It was comforting, until my trembling hands smudged ink across the exhibits I'd been assembling. I paused, inhaled the caffeine and ozone scent of the room, and forced my shoulders to square. Fear is tensile. Stretch it too far and something snaps. I needed that snap to happen inside Spirely, not inside me. The city felt muted when I stepped onto the balcony, just before sunrise. Canary Wharf's glass torsos glowed a pewter blue, cranes frozen like gigantic herons over the Thames. Somewhere in that forest of steel sat Spirely's European headquarters, its executives probably sleeping under weighted blankets. secure in the assumption that today's meeting would end with my capitulation. I gripped the balcony railing so hard my knuckles blanched. The metal was cold, but anger burned hotter. Back inside, I spread 13 printed provisional confirmations like tarot cards, each stamped with a unique filing number. Beside them lay the office action rejection, blood-red annotations circling every injustice. I had highlighted Spirely's provisional reference in yellow so bright it looked radioactive. Beneath those papers rested my prototype. A silent ally, its LED now blinking a calm teal instead of green. Overnight firmware update, courtesy of a sleepless hour rewriting code to improve response curves by 2%. Petty maybe, but progress is the sharpest rebuttal to a thief. The buzzer startled me at 5:49. Asa arrived wearing yesterday's blazer, and the kind of spectacles that make young lecturers look older on purpose. He dumped a backpack of folders on the table and greeted me with a hug that smelled of airplane cabin. "Slept 14 minutes on the flight," he murmured against my shoulder. "Dreamed I was cross-examining your CEO while riding a unicycle. Freud would have a field day." I laughed, the sound brittle. "Hope you kept the unicycle. We may need circus tricks." We dove into strategy. Asa's masterstroke was Rule 56, the duty of candor. If we could prove Spirely intentionally withheld my disclosures when filing their provisional, their entire application risked inequitable conduct findings, patent death by perjury. The catch? We needed evidence of intent, emails, meeting notes, witness testimony, none of which we possessed, yet. By 7:10 we hailed a cab across town. Traffic thickened as morning commuters flooded roads. I watched taillights bleed red across wet asphalt and rehearsed lines in my head. You stole proprietary concepts. You must license. You will compensate. Each phrase felt both empowering and terrifying, like gripping live wire. Spirely's headquarters loomed, a monolithic shard of mirrored glass tapering into low clouds. Their lobby was all Italian marble veined like fossilized lightning. We passed a fountain whose programmable water jets traced Spirely's logo every 30 seconds. Security scanned the prototype case, frowned at the circuitry, but waved us through after I quoted the meeting reference code Markham's assistant emailed overnight. A petite woman in angular charcoal dress greeted us outside Lift Bank C. "Mr. Markham will see you in Conference Suite Atlas," she said, eyes flicking between Asa's beat-up satchel and my calloused hands, as if noting the incongruity of garage inventors inside a glass palace. Her badge read Clara HSU, Strategic Opus. Strategic indeed. Inside the lift, mirrored walls reflected our anxiety back at us. Asa whispered, "Remember, don't sign anything. Don't concede originality. If they push NDAs, insist reciprocal disclosure." The doors opened on the 42nd floor to reveal a reception area, where sunlight refracted through art installations, like shards of captive rainbows. Clara led us down a corridor lined with framed patents, each plaque boasting Spirely inventors in embossed gold. I counted 20 before we reached Atlas. The conference suite overlooked the Thames Bend, its curved window larger than my entire flat. An oval table of black glass dominated the room, and at its head sat Julian Markham, sharp suit, salt and pepper hair, posture like coiled silk. Beside him lounged two figures, a woman in a cobalt blazer whose calm hinted at lethal negotiation skills, and a man whose name tag, Brian Kuiper, CTO, matched the signature on my rejections examiner interview summary. Markham rose. "Miss Teller, Mr. Teller, thank you for coming." His tone suggested we were late to our own funeral. "Coffee?" He gestured to a silver carafe, guarded by tumblers of still water, that probably cost more per liter than petrol. I declined. Asa accepted water and set his recorder pen on the table. Unmissable. Markham's eyebrow twitched. "Let's begin," he said, folding hands. "You filed 13 provisional applications last night, each touching domains where Spirely maintains substantial R&D investment. Our board perceives this as a hostile posture." I leaned forward. "Hostility is mischaracterized. My filings protect technology that originates solely from my research. Spirely's provisional preempts my work under false prior art. That's theft." Cobalt Blazer spoke next. I'm Elena Torres, IP Director. We dispute your originality claim. Our team can produce lab notebooks dating back 18 months demonstrating conceptual overlap. Overlap isn't identity, Asa interjected. We'll need full chain of custody for those notebooks. Torres smiled thinly, provided mutual discovery. Markham steepled fingers. We prefer resolution without litigation. A cross-license agreement. Spirally gains non-exclusive rights to your regulator algorithm. You receive a lump sum remuneration. How lump? I asked, pulse quickening. 300,000 pounds, he said as casually as ordering lunch. And co-inventor credit on future patents where your algorithm is integral. I swallowed. Months ago, such money would have solved every debt. Bought state-of-the-art lab equipment. Maybe a studio apartment not plagued by mold. But numbers are context. Spiraly's wearables division alone grossed $50 million last quarter. I met Asa's gaze, then squared to Markham. Not acceptable. You will drop your provisional, acknowledge my priority date, and license from me going forward at a standard royalty, 5% net sales, escalating to 8 on units over 1 million per quarter. Kuiper scoffed. Outrageous. We could redesign around you in 6 months. I flicked on the prototype. LED pulsed. I improved efficiency by 2% overnight. By the time you redesign, I'll be at 10. Consumers notice battery life. Regulators notice thermal compliance. Copycats notice lawsuits. Torres interlaced her fingers. Even if we agreed, your filing fees alone suggest limited capital. Litigation is expensive. We could bury you in motions. Asa slid a folder forward. Ms. Teller has secured third-party litigation financing contingent on meritorious review. It was a bluff. The folder contained nothing but blank paper. Yet the words hung like smoke. Financiers gamble on winnable cases, and Spirally knew the optics of crushing a lone female inventor. Markham's lips thinned. We can adjourn for now. No, I said, heat rising. We resolve or escalate. Markham regarded me as though assessing a puzzle piece cut from marble instead of cardboard. Very well. Give us the afternoon. I stood. You have until noon. It was 9:47. We exited into the corridor, hearts hammering. Clara, waiting like a patient wraith, escorted us to a glass-walled lounge stocked with pastries. You may wait here, she said, and disappeared. Asa exhaled. Noon? Bold. I paced. They expect fear. We trade on surprise. Hours crawled. I answered emails from potential angel investors who'd seen pitch night photos circulating social media. One DM stood out. A venture partner at Helix Capital requesting a call. I typed a polite delay. Crises first, funding later. At 11:58, Clara reappeared. Mr. Markham requests your return. Conference Suite Atlas now felt colder. Markham remained seated, but Torres's place was occupied by a new figure, a tall woman with silver-streaked braids and a demeanor like tempered steel. This is Dr. Nadine Arkwright, head of research, Markham said. She has authority to restructure departmental strategy. Arkwright offered a hand. Her grip was firm, sparing of theatrics. Ms. Teller, your regulator impressed me months ago when your presentation crossed my desk. Bureaucracy and egos intervened. I apologize. The admission rattled me. I managed a nod. Markham cleared his throat. We propose a joint venture. Spirally funds a new thermal solutions subsidiary. You retain 51% equity. We license back the tech at 4% royalty with milestone bonuses. In exchange, you withdraw provisionals beyond wearable implementations. Asa's jaw slackened. I masked shock behind a sip of water. My mind raced. Joint venture meant resources, labs, distribution, yet relinquished some control. Also, they asked me to withdraw 9 filings, leaving them free in other sectors. I set the glass down carefully. I appreciate the gesture, but my filings protect not just me but future innovators facing similar theft. Limiting scope undercuts that principle. Arkwright folded arms. A principled pauper can't change an industry. Watch me, I said. Silence thickened. Markham's gaze flicked to the wall clock. 12:07. He inhaled. Last proposal. £2 million buy-in. 70-30 split your favor. No withdrawal of provisionals until full utility patents issue. We share prosecution costs. Blood thundered in my ears. 2 million. Laboratories, staff, freedom. Yet deals signed in desperation echo for decades. I took a breath. I need 24 hours to evaluate. Markham nodded slowly. Agreed. But know this. If we part without accord, Spirely proceeds with redesign efforts tomorrow. Asa gathered papers. We'll respond first thing. Outside, the sky threatened rain. We found a bench overlooking the river where gulls shrieked above tour boats. Asa tore the seal on a pastry bag and handed me a croissant. He spoke around flaky crumbs. They blinked first. That means leverage. I stared at the waves. Or they're boxing us into over-negotiation. Phone buzzed. Helix Capital again, I answered. Ms. Teller, a smooth American accent said. This is Rowan Lake. Your pitch video caught my team's attention. We're intrigued by your IP position. I understand you're negotiating with Spirely? Adrenaline spiked. Discussions are preliminary. Lake chuckled. Nothing is preliminary to a fund with capital. We fly to London tonight. Dinner at 20? We can outline terms exceeding whatever Spirely offers. I blinked. Send location. I'll be there. After hanging up, Asa whistled. Venture sharks smell blood. Opportunity, I corrected, though my stomach churned. Rain began, soft but insistent. We hurried toward the tube, umbrellas forgotten. Drops plastered my hair to my forehead, but the cold clarity felt cleansing. As we descended the staircase, a figure blocked our path. Elena Torres, cobalt blazer darkening with rain. She handed me a sealed envelope. Unilateral NDA concerning all negotiations. Signed copies required by 1800 or offers rescind. I frowned. We already have NDAs. These supersede. Her eyes flicked to Asa. And muzzle. She turned on a heel, vanished into the crowd. I tore the flap. Inside, legalese pulsed like a virus. Clause 6 barred me from discussing negotiations with third parties, Helix included. Classic containment. Asa cursed. They want exclusivity leverage. If you sign, dinner's pointless. We ducked into a cafe, dripping. I skimmed pages. What if we counter by releasing a public statement? Sunshine is disinfectant. Defamation risk, Asa said. But a well-worded press release about female inventors defending IP could win public favor, pressure Spirely. I opened my laptop, hands shaking. Drafted. Independent inventor files provisional patents challenging corporate power imbalance. By 1600, we'd emailed tech journalists. Embargo lifting at 8 o'clock next morning. Clause 6 be damned, I hadn't signed. Dinner at the Shards restaurant perched above the city like Olympus. Rowan Lake arrived in navy suit, her smile a polished blade. She grilled me on unit economics, scalability, exit multiples, but her eyes glimmered when I described the adaptive algorithm's future. Smart fabrics, medical implants regulating fever, satellites shedding excess heat. We concede at $5 million for 25%, she said over dessert. We'll underwrite litigation and hire ex-USPTO examiners to shepherd patents. I exhaled. Send the term sheet tonight. Back home near midnight, exhaustion hit like a train. I collapsed onto the futon, still in rain-damp clothes. Prototype blinking on the bedside table, like a restless conscience. My phone chimed. Email from Rowan. Draft term sheet attached. Another buzz. Press outlet requesting comment on David vs. Goliath story for morning release. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, a weight settled in my gut. Momentum begot complexity. Complexity birthed risk. My invention, once a private dream, now rode waves of corporate intrigue and media spectacle. Lightning forked beyond the window. Thunder rattled glass. The prototype's LED flickered crimson, a low battery warning I hadn't coded. I sat up, heart pounding. Crimson, not possible. Firmware lacked that state. I lifted the device. Temperature sensor spiked. 90 degrees Celsius. Impossible on a bedside table. A chemical smell, plastic heating. The graphene microchannels glowed faint orange, circuits overheating independently of power input. Sabotage? Firmware injection? I yanked the battery leads, but the temperature reading climbed. Suddenly the casing cracked with a soft pop, smoke curling. I hurled it into the steel sink just as a small flame erupted. Water doused it, steam whooshing. Breath ragged, I stared at the scorched hull. Someone had triggered thermal runaway remotely. Only one entity had motive and access to my earlier schematics. I reached for the phone with shaking fingers, composing a message to Asa. They're playing dirty. We need secure lab space, immediately. Before I could hit send, the phone screen flashed an unknown number. Calling, I answered. A distorted voice, masked by codec noise, whispered, "Back down, Margot, or next prototype burns hotter, people too." The line clicked dead. I stood in the smoky gloom, rain hammering the windows harder now, tasting metallic fear on my tongue. The war had just escalated from legal briefs to threats of bodily harm. And dawn was only hours away. I lifted my eyes to the dark room, felt resolve crystallize harder than terror. If they wanted heat, I'd show them a wildfire. Wildfire. The hiss of evaporating water lingered in the flat like a predator's breath. I stood barefoot beside the sink, clutching the ruined prototype, my pulse a staccato drumline against my ribs. Smoke curled toward the ceiling vent, carrying the acrid stench of burnt graphene and threatened ambition. Somewhere below the pounding rain, London hummed, unaware that war had been declared in a single whispered threat. First action: contain physical risk. I dumped the sputtering device into a stainless steel stockpot, snapped the lid on, and slid the pot onto the balcony to cool in the downpour. Sparks fizzled against wet concrete. Second action: isolate networks. I stabbed the kill switch on my router, yanked every Ethernet cable, and powered down laptops, phones, even the electric kettle, anything that could carry code deeper into my life. Only once the flat plunged into monastic silence did I let my knees buckle. I slid down the cupboard, back against wood grain scarred by years of impromptu soldering, and forced breath into measured counts. 4 in, hold, 6 out. When the tremors in my hands slowed, I powered my spare burner phone, one I kept for travel, never linked to my name, and texted Asa, down triangle connection, firewalled. Trusted line only, then location ping. Station foyer 24. He'd decode the cipher. Foyer of Paddington Station, bench 24, our childhood rendezvous for lost school days. I dressed in layers, jeans, hoodie, waterproof shell. I packed only essentials, engineering notebook, passport, a USB drive containing clean versions of my code compiled before yesterday's meeting, and 50 pounds in notes. Everything else felt compromised. At 2:41, I hit the streets, hood up, eyes scanning for shadow tails I wouldn't know how to spot. The city smelled electric, as if the storm had split open cables overhead. The tube doesn't run at that hour. I hailed a cab driven by a Somali grandfather who hummed old love songs. We spoke little. His warm baritone settled my frayed nerves. 20 minutes later, he let me off at Paddington's side entrance, refusing my tip with a blessing in Arabic that felt like a protective charm. The station foyer was deserted, except for cleaning crews and a pastry vendor prepping dough at an all-night kiosk. Bench 24 sat under flickering fluorescent lights. I perched there, backpack hugged to my chest, counting breaths until Asa arrived. Hair damp, eyes rimmed red from sleeplessness but fiercely alert. He carried a weatherproof lawyer's satchel and wore the expression of someone ready to sue God. We didn't hug. Instead, he tapped his watch. Secure window 15. Code 4. We had 15 minutes before surveillance likelihood spiked. We headed for the darkened concourse, ducked behind a closed tourist info booth, and spoke in whispers. I detailed the sabotage. Asa cursed softly. Firmware injection implies network breach. Could be inside job at Spirely or contracted Black Hat. I shut everything down, but they warned me people burn next. He inhaled, steady. Okay, We need offline workspace, secure ICS lab, Faraday shielding. I know someone at the university who moonlights in radio frequency containment. But we also need allies bigger than a law student and his overstressed sister. Helix? I asked. Asa grimaced. Venture money helps, but they'll push for board control once blood's in the water. We need counterweight. A tannoy crackled overhead, announcing early morning engineering works. The echo reminded me of the patent office's cold voice pronouncing rejection. I squared my shoulders. I want to go public before Spirely frames me as reckless inventor endangering safety. We leak sabotage evidence, photos of burnt prototype, threat recording. Asa's brow furrowed. That invites criminal investigation. Also defamation suits if attribution's shaky. I surprised myself with a humorless laugh. They already threatened arson. Let's force them into daylight. He nodded, resolve hardening. Then we need the right journalist. Tech-savvy, fact-obsessed, fearless. Amelia Pike at The Guardian, I said instantly. Years of reading her exposés on data privacy abuses had etched her name in my mind. We approach with evidence bundle. Agreed. As dawn's first pallid blush crept into the concourse skylights, we drafted plans on paper torn from my notebook, no digital trace. By 5:30 trains began rumbling in. Commuters with takeaway coffees replacing night's ghosts. Time to move. The secure lab Asa mentioned was in Bloomsbury, a basement beneath a decommissioned physics building slated for renovation. We bribed the caretaker with fresh donuts and limited disclosure. University-approved ETL audit. Inside, peeling paint flaked from brick walls, but the thick concrete and lack of windows provided natural Faraday shielding. Perfect. By mid-morning, we had strung battery-powered LED lamps, set up a borrowed oscilloscope, and patched my backup laptop through a data diode, one-way transfer only. Asa fetched packet sniff logs from my fried router, hoping to trace infiltration vector. I donned nitrile gloves and dissected the scorched prototype under magnifying loupe. Melt patterns suggested over-voltage injection via debug pins, hardware attack, not remote firmware push. So someone had physically accessed the device between pitch night and my flat. My skin crawled. The only time it left my sight had been during security scan at Spirely. I remembered Kuiper's dismissive smirk. Had a tech swapped the unit? I checked serial markings. Subtle engraving I etched onto heatsink remained, but screws bore micro-scratches indicating tampering. Asa cross-referenced the router logs. No outbound unusual after 2000. Breach looks local, not remote. That matches your tampering theory. Which means Spirely or their contractor still has my original prototype, I said. Lightning arced again outside. The storm hadn't fully passed. It felt metaphorical. Electricity fracturing darkness, illuminating truths for flashes only. At 11 o'clock, we slipped out to a nearby cafe with pay-as-you-go phones purchased in cash from a corner shop. I dialed the Guardian's main desk, asked for Amelia Pike's tip line, left a voicemail referencing, quote, evidence of corporate sabotage risking public safety. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. Pike herself. Her voice carried caffeine urgency. I outlined the events, offered proof under condition of coordinated release. She agreed to meet that afternoon, off-site. Location chosen: the Serpentine Bridge in Hyde Park, public yet discreet. Meanwhile, Spirely's exclusive NDA deadline ticked toward 1800. We drafted a response refusing signature pending safety audit, citing sabotage concerns, CCing the UK Intellectual Property Office, and the Metropolitan Police Cybercrime Unit. Even if they scoffed, the paper trail mattered. Helix Capital pinged again, term sheet revisions, eagerness to close. I stalled, explaining new developments, security incidents. Rowan Lake's replies remained calm but probing. She offered in-house security consultants. The chessboard grew crowded. Hyde Park smelled of wet earth and budding chestnut leaves when we approached the bridge. Tourists fed swans under a hesitant sun. Amelia Pike waded in a navy trench coat, hair pulled into a bun that betrayed streaks of gray earned from late-night deadlines. She greeted us with direct eye contact and a recorder already rolling. We handed over photos, charred circuitry, scorch marks on my sink, time-stamped. We allowed her to listen to the thin audio of the threat call, voice distorter evident. We showed the tamper scratches under magnification, plus receipt timestamp proving the unit's intact state before Spirely Security handled it. Pike's eyes narrowed. If corroborated, this suggests criminal sabotage, potentially endangering you and public property. Did the police open a file? Reporting tonight, Asa said. We wanted evidence compiled first. Good. She closed her notebook. I can push an article live tomorrow morning. Lead with sabotage angle. Tie it to gendered power imbalance in tech patenting. But you must be on record. Anonymous whistleblowers bury outrage. A knot formed in my stomach. Public record meant open season on my reputation, but also accountability. I nodded. On record. She extended a release form, which I signed while my heart hammered a Morse code of fear and defiance. Evening approached. NDA deadline loomed. Back in the basement lab, we composed our refusal. We cannot, in good conscience, sign a document restricting disclosure when evidence suggests direct threats to safety potentially related to your organization. At 17:53, we hit send through an air-gapped machine using a fresh SIM. 1 minute later, auto-reply from Torres acknowledging receipt. Silence then, ping. A new email from Julian Markham. Ms. Teller, we strongly advise reconsideration. Escalation benefits no party. Attached. A PDF labeled draft injunction. I skimmed. They intended to seek emergency injunctive relief, preventing me from disseminating proprietary prototypes, citing trade secret theft. Absurd inversion. Hearings set for 9 o'clock tomorrow if filed. Asa's jaw clenched. They're striking before article drops. Can we quash? I asked. Not overnight. But we can countersue. We can also show sabotage to judge. My phone buzzed with unknown number. Again, I answered on speaker. The same distorted voice hissed, "Told you to back down, Margot. Now courtrooms will bury you before coffins do." Click. Chill raced down my spine. Asa grabbed his coat. Police station, now. We rushed through wet streets to Holborn Police Station, filed a report, surrendered evidence. Officers photographed the burnt device, recorded the threat audio, took our statements. One detective, D.I. Sharma, listened keenly. Corporate intimidation cases often stall, she warned, but arson threat elevates priority. We'll need custody of any remaining devices. My original prototype may be at Spirely, I said. She arched a brow. Then we'll request access. Paperwork swallowed hours. At 2200 we emerged into drizzle. I felt lighter for having formal protection, yet more exposed, like turning on a beacon in enemy territory. Blank. We returned to the basement lab. Asa brewed instant coffee that tasted of despair. I paced, energy crackling. We need diversions. Multiple fronts so Spirely can't focus on crushing me. He sipped grimly. Helix term sheet? They could leak investment interest, raise valuation speculation, spook Spirely investors. Asa grinned. Market pressure as weapon. But Helix will want exclusivity. Fine. Offer them preemptive rights contingent on my majority control. He drafted an addendum. No board seats, 10-year royalty waterfall favoring me until Randy costs recouped. Rowan replied in under 10 minutes. Agreed, in principle. She'd fly in tomorrow with counsel. Chess pieces slid. Sleep came in microbursts between clattering pipes and thunder. At 4 o'clock, my phone lit. Guardian headline scheduled. Lone inventor accuses tech giant of prototype sabotage amid patent war. Accompanied by searing photo of charred regulator. Below, a quote from me. Innovation shouldn't require body armor. Article ETA 7 o'clock embargo. My chest tightened. Too late to back out. I closed the phone, found Asa awake reviewing case law. He met my eyes. Decision time. Court at 9 or press conference at 8? Both, I said. We address media on courthouse steps. He chuckled dryly. You always did like maximum difficulty mode. By 7:30, we stood outside the Royal Courts of Justice, gray spires looming against a peach dawn. Journalists already clustered, Pike among them, notebooks poised, cameras pointed toward the main doors awaiting Spirely's lawyers. Pike signaled the embargo lifted. Tweets erupted like fireworks. I stepped to a makeshift podium of stacked camera cases. Asa adjusted the handheld mic. My voice carried across the marble facade. Good morning, my name is Margot Teller. Yesterday I survived sabotage and tended to silence my intellectual property claims. Today I'm here not merely to defend my work, but to defend every independent inventor marginalized by corporate power. Innovation requires integrity, not intimidation. Flashes popped, questions shouted. Pike lobbed first. Do you hold Spirely directly responsible for last night's incident? I hold them accountable for creating an environment where such intimidation serves their interests, I answered. A rumble behind me, Spirely's counsel arriving. Markham walked flanked by Torres and a phalanx of suited barristers. Reporters split like water around a prow. He paused at the bottom step, gaze ice cold. Pike swung her mic. Mr. Markham, care to comment on sabotage allegations? He smoothed his tie. Spirely denies any wrongdoing. We prioritize safety and ethical conduct. Ms. Teller's statements are unfounded and defamatory. I opened my mouth, but Asa touched my elbow. Let him overplay. A reporter asked, why seek injunction if claims unfounded? Markham's jaw flexed. We protect trade secrets. He marched inside. Cameras swung back to me. I held up a clear evidence bag containing charred circuit board, courtesy of D.I. Sharma. Trade secrets don't burst into flames in my kitchen. Courtroom 3B smelled of varnish and carpets older than many countries. The presiding judge, Master Hilton, peered over spectacles with the weariness of a man who'd adjudicated every flavor of greed. Spirely's motion argued irreparable harm if I disclosed prototypes containing their undisclosed technology. Our rebuttal, sabotage evidence indicated unclean hands. Injunction should be denied pending investigation. As Asa presented, I watched Markham's scribble notes, jaw set. Torres whispered to Kuiper, who looked pale, as though new to courtroom drama. When my turn came, I testified under oath, recounting timeline, threats, tampering indicators. The judge listened, occasionally jotting. At 11:42 he recessed for lunch, promising ruling by 1500. Outside, media swarmed. Pike's story topped trending charts. Hashtag Zags, hashtag patents sabotage, and hashtag stand with Margot exploded. Helix Capital issued press release supporting me, citing, quote, unwavering commitment to ethical innovation. Spirely's stock wobbled 2 points. Rowan Lake texted, negotiating table shifts, stay strong. On courthouse cafeteria balcony, Asa and I shared soggy chips while drizzle misted across metal tables. My appetite vanished after 3 bites. I watched droplets race down railing, heart racing faster. Asa nudged me. Even if injunction denied, war isn't won. They'll appeal, stall utilities, maybe buy small labs to bury supply chain. I know, I whispered, so we escalate next. He frowned. Next? We prove they stole my original lab notes. Data forensics, witness inside Spirely. In whistleblowers we trust, Asa sighed, dangerous. Everything worthwhile is. At 14:55 we re-entered courtroom 3B. Master Hilton's voice boomed. After reviewing submissions, I find the applicants have not demonstrated a likelihood of success sufficient to warrant interim relief. The motion for injunction is denied. The gavel cracked. Gasps rippled. Markham's face remained granite, but I saw veins pulse at his temple. Asa squeezed my hand beneath table. The victory tasted bittersweet. Tempo of battle, not war. Yet outside, the press treated it like Waterloo. Pike thrust a mic. Miss Teller, your first response. Resilience is the mother of invention, I said. We press on. Markham exited through a side corridor. Spirely's entourage quick-marched. I watched them disappear like retreating storm clouds. That's when my phone chimed. Unknown number. Text only. Fire stage 2. Check lab. My blood iced. The basement lab? I grabbed Asa's arm, showed him. We sprinted for the exit just as sirens wailed in distance. Fire engines clustered outside the physics building. Smoke billowed from basement vents. Students gathered, filming on phones. My stomach dropped to an abyss. I pushed past tape. A firefighter blocked me. "Ma'am, building sealed. Small explosion. Electrical." "Prototype?" I breathed. "No casualties. Contained." But every scrap of evidence, code, hardware, ash. Asa pulled me back, voice trembling with fury. "They escalated." Tears threatened, but refused to fall. I glared through smoke at the unseen puppeteer pulling incendiary strings. They wanted me broken, resource-starved, humiliated. Instead, each strike hammered resolve into steel. I inhaled acrid air, coughed, and turned to Asa. "We go to the source. We break into Spirely, retrieve my original prototype, and expose everything." "Illegal," he murmured, but his eyes sparkled with the same mad light in mine. "Justice," I corrected. "We gather allies, plan heist, burn their lies with truth." Quote. Firelight danced across damp pavement, casting our shadows long and warped like mythical beasts rising from ruin. Sirens faded to pulsing blue glow. Around us, students murmured, journalists filmed, and London's sky darkened with the promise of another storm. We walked into that gathering dusk with nothing but determination and the knowledge that tomorrow night we would trespass in the belly of the beast. If we failed, Spirely would own not just my patents, but my silence. If we succeeded, and that's where I'll leave you for now. Now the vow hung in the night air like the ozone tang after lightning. We would break into Spirely and pull the beating heart of my invention out from its gilded ribs. Or die trying. That was only marginally hyperbolic. Considering their last escalation involved flames, the risk curve had already tilted into fatal territory. Yet the calculus felt simple. They were willing to burn laboratories. I was willing to torch reputations. In the algorithm of survival, irreversible courage sometimes equaled minimum viable product. Asa and I rode back from the smoking shell of the basement lab in a silent Uber, whose driver must have wondered why two soot-streaked siblings inhaled night air like tonic. He dropped us at my flat. A crime scene of its own. Police crime scene tape fluttered across the door. D.I. Sharma had ordered it sealed pending forensic sweep. We could not go inside. Our entire physical life now fit in my backpack and Asa's satchel. We booked into a budget hotel near King's Cross under assumed names, dead mathematicians we liked from childhood puzzle books, Ada Lovelace and Srinivasa Ramanujan. The night clerk didn't care, as long as the swipe card cleared. Inside the claustrophobic twin room that smelled of bleach and long-held secrets, we laid out the first draft plan across the duvet. Phase 1, Intelligence. You cannot breach a fortress blind. We needed building schematics, security protocols, staff rosters. We listed possible sources: former employees on LinkedIn, public planning permits filed with City of London, insider allies. Rowan Lake had mentioned Helix's corporate security arm, ex-Mossad analysts who ate NDAs for breakfast. But inviting a venture fund's agents into my crusade felt like exchanging one predator for another. Phase 2, Access. Spirely's badge system integrated biometric two-factor finger vein plus RFID. Stealing a badge wouldn't help without the vein pattern unless you also had a biometric override. Possibilities: piggyback on a legitimate employee after hours, or exploit scheduled maintenance windows when locks default to single-factor. The latter would be rare but perhaps discoverable. Phase 3, Extraction. Once inside RAND-D, locate prototype, copy data, escape with physical evidence. Ideally, leave no trace, or, alternately, leave trace so damning that any retaliatory narrative folds under its own weight. We argued until sunrise about ethics versus efficacy, legality versus necessity. Finally, exhaustion forced a ceasefire. I curled on the narrow mattress, mind buzzing with logistic permutations, cable sewers, roof access, drone lift options, until sleep claimed me with images of sparks raining over circuit boards like deadly confetti. Filled diamond, filled diamond, filled diamond. I woke to sunlight slicing through plastic blinds and to my burner phone vibrating with an unknown number. For half a second, my muscles froze. Another threat? I answered with a curt, yes. A woman's voice, calm but urgent. Miss Teller, you don't know me, but I believe we have a common enemy. Meet me at 1300, St. Dunstan in the East Gardens. Come alone if you trust fate, with backup if you trust no one. She disconnected. Asa stirred. I relayed the call. He sighed. Could be trap, could be whistleblower. Either way, we can't afford silence. We checked out, leaving no forwarding address, and set off on foot. I wore a baseball cap, hair tucked, sunglasses, despite overcast sky. Spycraft gleaned from too many airport thrillers. Asa kept 6 paces behind, role-playing disinterested passerby. St. Dunstan in the east, a bombed-out Wren church turned pocket garden, exhaled green serenity. Ivy-draped stone arches opened to sky. Pigeons cooed among holly leaves. At exactly 1300, a woman in navy boiler suit sat on a moss-rimmed bench by the shattered stained glass. Mid-30s, olive skin, high cheekbones, hair in utilitarian bun. She held a thermos like a chalice. She nodded as I approached. Margot, I'm Iris Ng, Senior Thermal Systems Engineer, Spirally Dynamics, at least until Monday, when I intend to resign. My pulse spiked. You read the Guardian piece. And everything between the lines. She unscrewed the thermos cap, poured tea into 2 collapsible cups, handed me one. I designed the test protocols for your regulator after Kuiper smuggled your prototype from security. When I expressed concern that concept lineage looked problematic, legal said keep quiet. Yesterday they ordered destruction of the evidence locker at Rand D. South. I refused. This morning Markham's people scheduled me for mandatory leave. So here we are. Trust is fragile, but desperation sometimes fast-tracks alliances. I told her about sabotage, threats, the impending heist. Iris listened, gaze steady. Their badge system has maintenance downtime tonight. She pulled a laminated sheet from inside her boiler suit, a photocopy of security memo. Biometric firmware upgrade 0-100 to 2 o'clock. Fallback to RFID only. Asa emerged from behind Ivy, introduced himself, and we pored over the memo like smugglers. Iris tapped a section. Backup generator test 115 triggers full power cycle. Many cameras restart sequentially, 90-second blind spots per sector. I studied her face. Why help us? She shrugged. I got into engineering to cool microprocessors, not warm corporate pockets with stolen tech. Besides, my mother taught me, if someone steals rice from your bowl, slap the chopsticks out of their hand. We left the garden with new blueprint prints, badge cloning equipment courtesy of Iris's hacker roommate, and a rendezvous time, 23:30 outside Spirally HQ loading dock. Filled diamond, filled diamond, filled diamond. Preparation hours blur like code compile cycles. We rented an unmarked white transit van using cash deposit and ACE's graduate union membership card. Inside, we rigged a mobile Faraday cage from copper mesh and duct tape. I prepped 4 dummy prototypes, empty shells with LEDs rigged to run on coin cells. One would replace my actual unit in the evidence locker, 3 others to seed confusion. Iris texted updates. She'd swipe us into staff gym on sub-basement level. From there, a freight elevator led directly to Thermal Lab Alpha, currently flagged under renovation and thus lightly staffed. Rowan Lake pinged again. Final term sheet ready for signature. I replied, mission critical tonight. Will revert. She responded with a single rocket emoji and the phrase, don't blow up, irony noted. At 2100, we met D.I. Sharma in a Pret-a-Manger car park. We needed legal cover in case of arrest. Off record, she hated corporate bullying, but her hands were tied without proper warrants. Still, she gave us a GPS body camera pen streaming to a secure police cloud. If things turn nasty, evidence uploads automatically. And call this burner once you have material. We'll intervene if life-threatening, but you didn't hear that. I clipped the pen inside my jacket. Filled diamond, filled diamond, filled diamond. 23:17. Rain returned, gentler than previous nights, coating streets in reflective glaze. The van idled 2 blocks from Spirely HQ. Iris arrived on a bicycle, tossed it inside, donned black utility jacket minus company logo. She handed each of us RFID badges labeled Visitor, pre-encoded to her access level during firmware downtime. 23:42. We rolled to loading dock. Night guard scanned our badges without question. Mid-upgrade logs would update later. Iris led through warren of corridors, smelling of industrial cleaner and chilled air. My heart thundered with the rhythm of the building's HVAC. 0:03. System clock ticked into maintenance window. Overhead security lights flickered. Iris swiped us into staff gym, a concrete cavern of treadmills and yoga mats. No one present. We crossed to service elevator B, descended to sub-basement 2. Doors opened on corridor lined with cardboard boxes labeled disposal. We trod softly, breath fogging in cool recycled air. Iris produced a multi-tool, popped vent cover outside Thermal Lab Alpha. Alarm sensors inside door, she whispered. Vent bypass safer. The duct was human-sized for maintenance. A blessing. Asa crawled first, then me, then Iris replaced cover. Inside the lab, emergency lighting cast sickly amber glow. Rows of heat chambers hummed, but workstations lay dormant. On central bench sat my original prototype in static safe clamshell, bright yellow evidence tag. Property of Spirely Legal. Seeing it felt like meeting a kidnapped child. I approached, tears pricking. LED dark. They'd severed battery. I lifted the clamshell gently into Faraday pouch. Beside it, binders of test data bore my name, Teller Reg _1 foot, scribbled under Project Nova. I photographed every page. Iris copied server files onto encrypted SSD while Asa swapped one dummy shell into clamshell resealing tag. 112. First phase done. We heard distant hum. Generator spin up. Iris hissed. Camera reboot sequence starting. Perfect. We exited via duct, returning to corridor as lights blinked off then on. 90 seconds. We ran for elevator. Then everything went wrong. Elevator doors slid open, and Julian Markham stepped out flanked by 2 security officers. His eyes widened, then narrowed. Miss Teller, I'm disappointed. His gaze flicked to pouch in my hand. Return company property, or these gentlemen will detain you. My mind raced. Cameras rebooting still offline, maybe 40 seconds left. I whispered to Asa. Vent shaft plan beta. Asa hurled a smoke grenade, one I didn't know he carried, down the corridor. Plume engulfed Markham. We sprinted past, ducked into vent, Iris sealing behind. Klaxons erupted. Manual alarm now. Red strobes lit duct like hell's traffic light. Crawling frantic, we reached maintenance junction. Iris yanked left toward cable crawl space. Footsteps clanged below. Security radio chatter echoed. We dropped into electrical closet, slammed breaker. Darkness swallowed corridor, emergency lights only. Asa wedged bristlebrush into latch. But footsteps grew nearer. We pushed through door to parking garage ramp, hearts hammering. Sirens outside? Police? Or Spirely crisis team? No way to know. We ran, soles slapping wet concrete, engine fumes thick. At van, Iris dove into driver's seat. I leapt into back, securing prototype in Faraday cage. Asa slammed rear doors. Engine roared, but a black SUV fishtailed into exit lane, blocking path. 2 security men leapt out, tasers drawn. Iris cursed, spun wheel toward alternate ramp. Van skidded up spiral exit, tires squealing. SUV pursued, headlights blinding. Street level, red traffic lights. Iris gunned through, horns blared, SUV close. From back window I saw passenger raise something. Dart? Bullet? A thud hit metal side panel. Adrenaline spiked. We weaved through Midnight City. Asa clung to grab handle, shouting directions. Left on Threadneedle. Alley shortcut. Vans scraped dumpsters, sparks flying. Suddenly ahead. Construction site. Road closed by barriers. Iris braked hard, but vans skidded on slick pavement. slammed through barrier onto gravel pit, engine whining. SUV braked behind, men sprinting with flashlights, shouting. I seized prototype cage, strapped backpack, yelled, "On foot!" We kicked rear doors, tumbled into mud. Iris sprinted right. Asa and I left toward scaffolding. Security men split. Floodlights ignited. The site still had standby power. We clambered steel staircase up skeletal building bones. Wind howled through rebar forest. Thumping boots below. Third floor platform ended in gap over street, 10-meter drop. Across gap, adjacent building rooftop within leap distance if adrenaline high. Asa's eyes widened. Bloody parkour now? Boots behind. No time. I slung backpack across chest, inhaled, sprinted, leapt. Air carved silence. City spun. Landing jarred knees but held. I rolled, pain flowering. Prototype hammered my sternum but intact. Asa followed, barely clearing gap, knuckles bleeding as he scrambled. Security man attempted but hesitated, slipped, dangled, then pulled back. They swore into radios. We raced across rooftop maze, down fire escape into narrow alley. Iris appeared in stolen moped, engine idling. She tossed helmets. Hop on! We squeezed, 3 on seat, precarious. Moped shot forward, weaving through back lanes. Sirens distant. Rain surged, stinging skin. Finally, we ducked into abandoned warehouse near Docklands. Iris killed engine. We collapsed amid crates, lungs burning. Prototype safe, data secured. But we were fugitives now. Spirally would unleash everything. I looked at Asa, mud-streaked yet grinning wild. I looked at Iris, hands shaking but eyes bright. I unzipped pouch. My regulator lay unmarred, its LED pulse faint after internal battery kicked. It glowed vermilion. Diagnostic mode I'd never programmed. A glitch from tampering or a warning of deeper corruption. Before we could parse, a spotlight sliced through cracked window, sweeping inside. Loudspeaker boomed. This is City of London Police. Exit with hands visible. Asa whispered. Did Sharma track body cam GPS? I swallowed. Or spirally tipped them, claiming theft. Outside, more lights converged. Doors rattled as silhouettes gathered. No way to know friend or foe. Prototype in hand, I stepped toward doorway when a thunderous crash collapsed roof glass, raining shards while tactical silhouettes absealed ropes, laser dots painting our chests. I froze mid-stride, heart ricocheting, hands up or run. And that's exactly when the prototype's LED flared blinding white, emitting a shrill alarm I never built, and everything went to static. White light seared the edges of my vision as the prototype's unexpected alarm shrieked through the cavernous warehouse. Instinct flung my arm across my eyes, but the retina burn still imprinted a perfect circle of radiance when I blinked. Steel-toed boots thundered on concrete. Laser pointers jittered like angry fireflies over the crates where Asa, Iris, and I huddled. Every shout echoed, overlapping. Armed police! Stand still! Hands where I can see them! The LED strobing from my device cut through the chaos like a Morse signal from another dimension. Illogical, impossible, yet undeniably mine. That paradox grounded me. If my work could still surprise me, it was still my work, not Spirally's. I straightened, palms open, prototype dangling from a wrist strap. We surrender, I called, projecting calm I didn't feel. Armed response officers moved closer, visors down, rifles leveled. One reached for my hand, secured zip cuffs. The plastic bit into my wrists. I glimpsed Asa kneeling, grimacing as cuffs cinched his. Iris's eyes burned with analytical fury behind smudged lenses. Lights swept our faces. Bodycam lenses glinted. The lead officer's patch read DSO Reynolds. Reynolds spoke into a mic. 3 suspects detained. Device emitting unknown signal, potentially hazardous. It's not a bomb, I said. It's a thermal regulator. Then why screaming like a carbon monoxide alarm? Reynolds asked. Good question. The alarm hacked my firmware, clearly. I watched as a bomb squad tech swaddled the device in blast blankets. LEDs strobe, turning cyan, then amber, as if cycling warnings we never programmed. My mind raced through code trees, looking for exploit vectors. None accounted for this color sequence. Through the shattered skylight, I saw drones hovering. Media? Police? The world wanted spectacle, and spectacle they would get. We were marched outside into rain that had thinned to a cold, steady curtain. Blue strobes painted puddles. I half expected Spirely's SUV to barrel around the corner, but only black and yellow police vans lined the street. A woman in plain clothes waited beside them, Detective Inspector Sharma. Relief flooded me, someone who'd seen the evidence before tonight. Sharma looked tired, her hair damp. Margot, this escalated quickly. She signaled the officers. They eased us into the back of a van, but cuffs stayed. Iris's jaw clenched at that. Inside, Sharma shut the door, softening her tone. Markham filed theft charges 3 hours ago. Anonymous tip put you here with stolen property. We came to prevent private security from playing cowboy. I nodded. The tip was Spirely. They engineered the setup. And the device? Sabotaged again, I said. We need a lab to forensically freeze its state before whatever malicious code erases itself. Sharma considered. Metropole Labs won't touch potential trade secrets. But there's another option. Home Office Special Tech Crimes Unit. They owe me a favor. As the van rolled toward West End, Asa leaned close. If Home Office validates sabotage, Spirely can't bury it. Iris added, we should still publish raw data for transparency. Crowdsourced cryptographers can replicate findings, keep chain of custody honest. Their faith buoyed me. I managed a weary smile. We rode in tense silence until traffic lights glowed amber on Whitehall. Home Office Special Forensic Services sat in a secure wing behind reinforced glass walls that reflected my exhausted face a dozen ways. Officers escorted us to an interview suite. Sharma cut our cuffs at last. I need statements, she said. Truth only. We told the story from sabotage to chase. Iris provided security memo copies. Asa uploaded body cam footage. Forensic engineers in Tyvek suits carried the blanketed prototype to a Faraday vault. I asked to accompany. Denied. Chain of custody protocols. Hours sluiced by. Vending machine coffee etched bitterness on my tongue. At 4:11, an engineer named Dr. Adler appeared, clipboard in hand. Interesting artifact, they said. Firmware contains self-contained Wi-Fi beacon, broadcasting a hidden SSID every time thermal sensor exceeds 20 degrees Celsius. It piggybacked on your LED driver to blast maximum lumen as optical handshake. Whoever inserted it wanted to pinpoint your location visually and wirelessly. My stomach dropped. A tracking payload. Can you trace call home address? We're working on it. Adler's eyes gleamed with ethical outrage. But initial packets route to a private satellite link registered to an Isle of Man shell. Parent company traces to a Singapore entity, coincidentally sharing board members with Spirely Ventures. Asa whistled. Smoking gun! Sharma's phone buzzed. She stepped aside, returning pale. Media already know about your arrest. Markham issued statement painting you as techno-terrorist. But the Guardian piece is live too. Public split. I pressed fingers to temples, fighting despair. At least we had the forensic breakthrough. Proof of embedded spyware turned a sabotage narrative into corporate espionage. Breakfast sunlight filtered gray through barred window slats as if reluctant to fully illuminate the mess. Sharma secured our release pending investigation, but kept the prototype. We stepped into the chill dawn, unshackled, but unsteady. London felt alien. Streets still damp. Commuters oblivious to the invisible war. Iris checked her watch. Spirely's quarterly board meeting starts at 10 o'clock. Shareholder Q&A live stream at 11. We have 4 hours to detonate truth. I blinked. You want to crash their webcast? She smiled. Ethically? Not literally. We leak Home Office preliminary findings to financial press. Spirely's stock will nosedive live on camera. Will Adler confirm so fast? Asa asked. Adler hates bullies, Sharma's voice behind us. She handed me a sealed envelope. Unofficial interim report. You didn't get it from me. Hope sparked. We dashed to a cafe with decent Wi-Fi, sat at corner table. While Asa drafted a blistering press release citing the forensic analysis, I recorded a 1-minute video. Messy hair, raw honesty. I looked into camera. I am Margot Teller. This regulator was sabotaged with spyware mapping to Spirally shell companies. We stand for transparent innovation. We scheduled release for 10:15 via Guardian's secure drop, time-synced with press email blast. I tapped publish, adrenaline spiking. Halfway through the upload progress bar, a second call from Rowan Lake flashed. I answered. Her voice vibrated with anticipation. Margot, Helix board loves fighters, but they hate uncertain IP. Deliver the formal home office report and we close at 10 million valuation. Fail, and we step back. I swallowed. You'll have the report soon. But Spirally might buy silence first, she warned. Stay visible. I hung up, telling Asa. He muttered a curse. Market vultures. We drained coffees, nerves singing. At 9:45, my phone pinged, a law firm email titled, Settlement Offer Urgent. I opened it. Spirally proposed immediate payment of £5 million, NDA, retention as consultant, classic hush money. Iris snorted. They're scared. I typed 2 words, no settlement, hit send. At 10:02, our press release blasted out. 5 minutes later, Guardian pushed my video across social feeds, with headline, Inventor exposes corporate spyware hack. Views exploded. Hashtag SpireLesby trended #1 UK. Within the hour, financial sites reported Spirally stock down 7%, trading halted pending statement. I refreshed feed compulsively. At 10:59, their webcast began. Board members filed onto stage, Markham conspicuously absent. Dr. Arkwright took podium, voice quavering. Mid-monologue, a journalist yelled, "What about the spyware in Ms. Teller's device?" Livestream comments cascaded. Eyes fire collision. Arkwright paused, corporate smile cracking. We are reviewing allegations. Feed glitched, screen filled with error. Comments exploded again. They pulled the stream. That moment felt like exhaling after holding breath underwater for days. Victory tasted metallic, uncertain, but real. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Noon brought new storms. Spirally issued statement blaming rogue contractor. Helix upped term sheet to $15 million. Other VCs called. But bigger than money, an email from United Nations Development Program. They asked if I'd discuss humanitarian applications of adaptive thermal tech for vaccine transport. I blinked in awe. Purpose bigger than revenge flickered on horizon. But the dragon wasn't slain yet. At 14:35, I received encrypted message from unknown Proton account. Evidence files incomplete. Data showing sabotage orders stored on Spirally's Tier 3 vault. Code phrase, Janice. Location Randy North, floor 17, cold room. I forwarded to Iris. She paled. Tier 3 vault is offline. Isolated enclave with magnetic locks. Only board-level biometrics grant access. I felt the gears of necessity grind. We need that proof to destroy them fully. Asa frowned. Another heist? After last night nearly killed us? Last night got them scrambling, Iris said slowly. Security will overcorrect, create new gaps. An idea sparked. What if we don't break in? What if we lure the vault to us? We brainstormed. Spirally's stock freefall forced emergency investor call at 2000. The Tier 3 vault contained crisis management playbooks and legal instructions. If we hijacked their crisis exfil protocol, we could intercept data off-site. Iris accessed her internal email. Her credentials hadn't yet been revoked. She located protocol. In severe data integrity threat, the vault auto-uploads encrypted backups to a satellite node before mirror deletion. Trigger requires simultaneous tamper alarms plus fire suppressant discharge. We could spoof those triggers electronically if we had root access tokens. Iris smiled. She still had her engineering token for Rand D. North. Combined with boardroom meeting, they'd be distracted. The plan formed. Remotely inject false tamper/fire signals at 1945. The vault would push encrypted archive to designated off-site SFTP. We would intercept by man-in-the-middle using Iris's VPN tunnel, capture packets, and decrypt later using code phrase Janus. Risk, detection, legal repercussions, voiding positive momentum, reward, ironclad proof of sabotage chain. Asa rubbed temples. We need secure server outside UK jurisdiction. I remembered a friend in Reykjavik running a privacy nonprofit with hardened servers under lava tunnels. One call later, we had temporary root credentials. Evening approached like a tightrope above shark-infested waters. We set camp in a co-working loft with gigabit fiber. Iris coded spoof script while Asa configured packet capture. I prepared press drafts. If operation succeeded, we'd leak vault files overnight. 1943. Heartbeat thrummed in my ears. Iris hit enter. A progress bar crawled across her terminal, injecting thermal override success. Disabling pressure sensors, success. On Spirely's side, silent alarms must have peppered dashboards. 1946. Vault status from internal monitor. Category 1 threat detected. Initiating data safeguard protocol. Packets surged across VPN tunnel, binary snowstorm. Our capture filled drive space at lightning speed. Iris grinned feral. Then her monitor flickered red. They severed VPN. Transfer stalled at 83%. Iris cursed. We lost handshake. What we have might be enough, Asa said. I scrolled file tree, hundreds of archives, many incomplete, but one labeled Project Anvil, Operation Smoke. Size 700 megabytes, checksum green. We initiated off-site copy to Reykjavik. Just as transfer completed, power in the loft flickered. My laptop screen went black. Streetlights outside winked out. City block lost electricity. A surge and hard crash. My heart plummeted. They cut grid? Emergency lights glowed dim red. Generators hummed. Iris exclaimed, fiber link down. They probably spiked substation. But was copy safe to Iceland? We didn't know. We scrambled down stairwell into pitch night. Sirens wailed distant. Maybe unrelated, maybe not. In alley, a black Mercedes idled. Rowan Lake stepped out, silhouette sharp. I figured you'd need wheels, she said, unlocking rear door. How did you know our location? I demanded. She smirked. Helix invests in intelligence, not just money. Get in if you want that vault data above ground. Asa hesitated. I felt choice compress. Trust venture shark or lose everything to Spirely's blackout. I slid into car. Iris followed. Asa sighed and climbed in last. Rowan tapped window, signaled driver. The Mercedes peeled off into darkened streets lit only by police blues and occasional battery-fed traffic lights. Rowan opened a silver case on her lap. Inside, satellite modem, high-gain antenna, rugged tablet. We routed your Reykjavik upload through our relay. 83% incomplete. We buffered the rest. Data safe. She tapped screen. Checksum 100%. Relief flooded me like dawn. Rowan's smile faded. But Spirely knows you access Tier 3. You'll need more than UN goodwill now. You'll need an army. She extended a contract printed on thick cream paper. Helix full acquisition offer, 25 million valuation, immediate funding, in-house security, global rollout. I stared at figures. Life-changing. Yet price. Minority control, future direction subject to board votes. Asa touched my arm. Careful. I met Rowan's gaze. Outside, London's blackout loomed like metaphor for corporate overreach. Inside, the prototype in my backpack pulsed steady teal, promise of technology for greater good. I took a breath, pen hovering over signature line. In that moment, doubt and desire warred within me. The Mercedes turned a corner, and headlights illuminated a barricade of police vans and spirally marked security trucks blocking road ahead. Officers raised weapons. Rowan swore, slammed dashboard. The driver braked to screech. I looked at the pen, then at the blockade, then at the contract. Behind us, engines roared, more vehicles sealing escape. We were boxed in. And you, listener, are boxed in too, because the next move could change everything. I'll let that cliffhanger settle while we figure out which path burns brighter. Freedom or fortune? The Mercedes headlights carved twin white tunnels through the drizzle, one leading to the barricade ahead, the other bleeding uselessly off the slick road behind as more engines growled into position. Sirens rippled in the distance, but in that immediate bubble of cold sodium light, I couldn't tell who owned the sound. Spirally commissioned security contractors, legitimate police, or a confused fusion of both. It didn't matter. We were boxed, and every redemption calculation I'd run over the last 48 hours suddenly reduced itself to a single prime imperative: keep the evidence alive. I shoved the contract Rowan was waving back at her, the pen still clipped uncapped. We're not negotiating with a gun to our heads. Rowan snapped the leather folder shut, lips forming a tight line that could have been frustration or admiration. It was hard to tell with venture capitalists. Then, Margot, what's the play? Because right now their play is lead-lined vans and indefinite detention. Asa leaned forward from the jump seat, knuckles white around a grab handle. We lose if Spirally repositions the narrative to corporate espionage and sabotage. We win if we stay in the public eye. Quote, visibility, I echoed, savoring the oxygen of the word. Open the sunroof. Rowan frowned. There's a riot shield in the boot, not an amphitheater. But she hit the control anyway. Glass panels slid back with a soft pneumatic sigh, releasing a mist of rain and car exhaust into the plush interior. Beyond, the barricade squad fanned out, Metropolitan Police in high-vis jackets, standing shoulder to shoulder with men wearing spirally embossed ballistic vests. The intermingling uniforms made my stomach churn. Corporate power had literally blurred the line between public authority and private muscle. A floodlight mounted on one of the security trucks flared, bathing us in harsh white. A voice boomed through a loudhailer. Vehicle occupants! Throw out any weapons or unauthorized property, and step out slowly with hands visible. Iris cracked her window just enough to let her phone's wide-angle lens peek through. Live stream is up, she whispered. Guardian, TechCrunch, and BBC just took the feed. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Good. They can't shoot a story in front of the entire internet. Rowan's driver, his name tag read Mendez, shifted the Mercedes into neutral, one foot hovering over the accelerator. Ma'am, I can try a ram through. 1,100 Newton meters of torque. Odds of punching a seam on the south flank are 60%. I considered, then shook my head. We don't escalate violence. We escalate facts. Iris gestured to the SAT modem case. The Reykjavik servers finished decrypting 2 gig of vault data an hour ago. Adler just texted, Home Office verified digital signatures trace straight to Markham. A jolt of fierce hope skittered down my spine. Send the smoking gun packet to every journalist on your list, unredacted, then tag me in. I'm on it, she said, thumbs flying. Outside, the loudhailer repeated the order. Rain thickened. I climbed onto the armrest, shoulders protruding through the sunroof, prototype backpack clipped to my chest harness. Floodlight beams converged on my face, searing retinas again, but I held my gaze steady, like aligning a sniper scope the other way round. My name is Margot Teller, I shouted, voice quivering in spite of best intentions. Inside my bag is a device the Home Office Forensics Division has confirmed was illegally modified by Spirally Dynamics. The modification includes spyware and remote sabotage protocols. The files proving that fact are being released to the press as I speak. Quote, microphones on both sides crackled to life, capturing my declaration. I saw a ripple in the police line. Some officers shifting uncertainly, eyes darting to superiors. A second voice, less amplified, argued with the first over the loudhailer. Rain hammered roof metal. I took a breath, continued. I am here under threat by the very company that sabotaged my invention and endangered public safety. I request immediate protective custody from impartial law enforcement, not corporate-funded contractors. The argument at the barricade escalated. A Met superintendent, silver braid glinting, strode to the front, yanked the loudhailer from a security guard. "Spirely personnel clear a perimeter," she barked, and the uniformed police drifted aside, creating visible separation. The Spirely men hesitated until she threatened arrest for obstruction. The tension cord eased half a pitch. I exhaled shakily and lowered back inside. Rowan grinned. Visibility 1, intimidation 0. But Asa wasn't smiling. He stared out the rear window at the second cordon. "Don't take a victory lap yet. That van is Met property, but its license plate prefix belongs to Counter Threat Unit 9. CTU 9 runs black bag work under Home Office. They don't answer to the superintendent." Rowan cursed softly. "Meaning what?" "Meaning, Markham's lobbying reached deeper than we thought. CTU 9 can, quote, detain for national security reasons and cite Official Secrets Act. Evidence could vanish." My chest tightened. I looked at Iris, whose phone vibrated incessantly. She swallowed. "Good news and bad. Files are out there. Guardian, Wired, half the tech Twitter sphere. But Spirely's PR launched a counter-spam campaign. They're claiming the documents are deepfakes." Rowan snapped fingers. "We need cryptographic timestamps and chain of custody certification from Reykjavik. Attach Adler's forensic hash report." Iris nodded, typing. Meanwhile, CTU 9 officers in matte black gear approached the Mercedes. They wore no company logos, just helmets and visors. One tapped the driver's glass with a tactical flashlight. Mendez raised both hands, engine still idling. The officer signaled for doors to open. Rowan met my eyes. "Last chance to sign. Investors will protect you. They'll buy you a fortress." I smiled grimly. "I'm not looking for a fortress. I'm looking for freedom of invention." She sighed, sliding the contract back into her case. "Then let's stand on principle till the storm clears." The doors opened. Officers ordered us out. We complied, hands raised. Rain plastered my hair to my forehead. Iris's phone kept streaming from her breast pocket. Floodlights captured every droplet. A CTU 9 commander approached, visor up, revealing hard blue eyes under a helmet streaked with water. "Ms. Teller," he said, "by authority of the National Security and Investment Act, I'm placing you in protective detention. Please surrender your device." "Under what grounds?" Asa demanded. "Potential exposure of critical semiconductor intellectual property to foreign actors," he said smoothly, "will ensure its integrity." "Foreign actor like Spirely's Singapore shell?" I shot back. He ignored me, extending a gloved hand. I looked at the prototype bag. The LED glowed steady jade now, a diagnostic state signifying low-power safe mode. I unbuckled the chest harness slowly, the world narrowing to that green eye. "Stream is rolling," Iris whispered. I lifted the pouch over my head, then paused. "Commander, I will surrender the device on condition your chain of custody is public and includes Home Office forensic team already engaged." He scowled, stepping closer. "This is not a negotiation, Ms. Teller." Rowan interjected, pulling a tiny badge from her blazer, an austere gold crest. "Perhaps it is. Helix Capital is a registered security stakeholder under the Preliminary Patent Security Annex. Any seizure triggers mandatory corporate oversight. You'll need my countersignature or risk state liability." I blinked. I didn't know such annex existed, but the commander evidently did. His jaw flexed. Rain drummed silence until he stated, "Fine, joint custody." Rowan's badge, real or bluff, bought us precious leverage. The prototype would go into a sealed evidence coffin with dual signatures. Cameras captured the process. I surrendered the bag. Within minutes, we were seated in separate CTU 9 vans, wrists in softer flex cuffs, heading not to a constabulary cell, but to the Defense Science and Technology Laboratory campus in Portendown outside Salisbury. National security indeed. The 3-hour drive south blurred under halogen streetlights and the creeping numbness of exhaustion. My mind circled anxiously. Would independent labs keep verifying files? Could Spirely issue injunctions to gag the Guardian? Would Helix's interest wane if state secrecy swallowed everything? As dawn painted mist over the Wiltshire fields, we rolled past fences topped with concertina wire into DSTL grounds. I glimpsed low buildings, biodome structures, satellite dishes, Britain's hush-hush lab labyrinth. We were led into an underground wing smelling of antiseptic and machine oil. Inside a debrief room, 3 individuals waited. A middle-aged woman in RAF uniform, a bespectacled man wearing the DSTL logo, and Julian Markham, suit freshly pressed, hair annoyingly impeccable. My heart stuttered. How did he get jurisdiction here? The uniformed woman introduced herself. Group Captain Eliza Morgan, liaison to National Defense Technology Council. She gestured to seats. Let's begin. Asa and Iris were escorted elsewhere. Rowan remained beside me as, quote, corporate observer. Markham sat opposite, folding hands like a chess master. Morgan spoke first. Ms. Teller, your thermal regulation algorithm intersects projects of national strategic interest, spaceborne sensors, soldier-worn exosuits. Sabotage allegations are serious. Agenda today is to assess ownership and security classification. Markham leaned forward. Spirely stands ready to license technology to the Crown, ensuring continuity. I laughed, the sound harsh. License? You detonated prototypes and implanted spyware. Markham's eyes flicked to Morgan. She asserts, we deny. Evidence ambiguous. Rowan cleared her throat. Helix holds independent copies of sabotage logs verified by Home Office. We advise objective audit before any classification. Morgan exhaled patiently, like a schoolteacher with unruly students. Hence, we have assembled a joint forensic panel. Full chain of custody review begins at 1,300 hours. Until then, parties will refrain from public statements. Markham smiled slightly. He already seeded the narrative as deepfake. I needed a coup. I parted my lips, but Rowan squeezed my arm subtly. She leaned closer to Morgan. Group Captain, Helix is prepared to cover the cost of expedited cryptanalysis, supplying ex-NSA staff to ensure transparency. Morgan's eyebrow quirked. Noted. Markham scowled. His monopoly over resources cracked. We were walked to holding suite, sterile but furnished, until 1300. Hours dragged. I paced. Rowan fielded calls. At 10:17, Asa was ushered in with Iris. Both looked haggard, yet hopeful. Asa handed me a folded note. Adler confirmed, metadata chain on vault files corresponds exactly to Spirely internal timestamp server. Translation, authenticity locked. Before noon, Morgan herself came. Initial hash verification corroborates your claim, Ms. Teller. But learn this. The sabotage code references an internal memo labeled Project Anvil. We need explanation. I spread my palms. That's Spirely's, not mine. At 1300, we reconvened in audit lab. Digital forensics specialist projected code diff on wall monitors. It showed my original firmware on left, malicious overlay on right. Header line signed J. Markham. Commit date 2 weeks prior. Gasps rippled. Morgan turned slowly to Markham, whose complexion grayed. Care to comment? He straightened, cool facade cracking. Those commits are forged. Someone wants to frame me. Adler piped through video link, voice edge sharp. We compared cryptographic Git signatures with Spirely's internal key store. Unless someone stole your hardware security module, Mr. Markham, the commits are yours. Markham opened his mouth, closed it. Then the lab's PA system blared. Alert! Security breach sector B9. Doors auto-locked. Lights flickered red. Morgan barked into her radio. Distorted replies. Intrusion generator. Server room compromised. I felt nausea. Sabotage again? Fire extinguishers hissed through ceiling vents as Halen flooded server racks visible through glass windows. Through swirling vapor, a shadowy figure darted, wearing DSTL pass, face masked. Who? Rowan began. Markham bolted toward the exit panel, palm hacking at override keypad. Iris lunged, but he slapped her aside, keyed sequence I didn't recognize. Doors slid open. He sprinted into corridor. Alarms multiplied. Morgan ordered pursuit. 2 MPs charged after him. Rowan whipped out phone, streaming behind them. I followed instinctively, my muscles ignoring common sense. We ran past darkened labs, where red emergency strobes pulsed. Markham ducked into a stairwell labeled Sub-Level Archive. We descended steel steps 2 at a time, echoing clangs magnified by adrenaline. The archive level was a vault lined with dense sliding shelves, climate-controlled. Markham scrambled across to a data console, jabbing commands. Drives began ejecting optical discs labeled Project Anvil, OPSMOKE, OPFALCON, OPJANUS. He shoved discs into a satchel hidden under his blazer. "Stop!" Morgan's voice thundered. Markham whipped out a stun baton from pocket. He swung at the nearest MP, sparks crackling. The soldier dropped. Morgan drew sidearm but couldn't risk discharge. Near Helen-filled chambers, she advanced cautiously. I stepped forward. "Julian, you have nowhere to run. Cameras are live. Drop the discs." Quote. He turned toward me, eyes wild yet calculating. "You think you've won? Spirally is bigger than patents. It's infrastructure. It's the nervous system of tomorrow. No upstart narrated by clickbait hacks will dismantle it." He backed toward freight lift. Iris whispered into her phone, "Streaming this." Markham hit call button. Lift clanged open. Inside stood 2 more CTU-9 officers. They looked at him, then at us, uncertain whose chain of command to follow now that sabotage evidence surfaced. Morgan flashed orders. "Detain him." One officer stepped forward, but Markham raised his baton, sparks dancing. Then everything erupted. Another alarm. Helen purge imminent. Gas jets hissed overhead, fog concealing shapes. I coughed, eyes burning. Hands grabbed my arm, Asa pulling me back. Through haze I saw Markham drop baton, clutching satchel to chest, lever agile into the lift. Doors slid shut. Officers pounded, but too late. The lift ascended, red indicators trailing. Morgan swore into radio. "Seal exits. Deploy intercept." I gasped for clean air, mind racing. If Markham escaped with discs, he could still pivot narrative, offer sacrificial resignation, claim he alone acted, salvage Spirely. We needed that satchel. Rowan stumbled, coughing. "Service corridor to helipad. Lifts converge there." We dashed. Guided by schematics, Iris pulled onto her AR glasses. She'd slipstreamed DSTL floor plans from public contractor filings earlier. We poured into maintenance tunnel lit by emergency strips, climbed ladder shafts, bodies aching. Above, dawn light pierced rooftop exit. Wind whipped. A corporate helicopter idled, rotors spooling. Markham sprinted across pads, satchel slung. A pilot waited, headset on. Morgan burst through behind us, weapon raised. "Markham, halt!" Rotor wash drowned her words. Markham tossed satchel into cabin, ducked. I scanned pad, no cover, the only path, intercept physically. Adrenaline detonated. I sprinted, feet skidding on wet composite panels. Rotor blades thumped like war drums. Markham saw me, eyes widening. He shoved pilot aside, grabbing cyclic to throttle. I reached landing skid just as skids lifted. My hands latched metal. Feet dangled, wind roaring. Below, Morgan and Asa shouted, but voices were lost. Helicopter lurched skyward. Markham leaned outdoor, fury scorching. He kicked at my fingers, but I clung, mind blank save singular focus. Don't let go. Rain pelted, rotor wash tearing breaths from lungs. The city rotated beneath, patchwork of fields giving way to houses. My grip slipped one knuckle. I swung leg, hooked inside door frame, hauled myself into cabin. Markham drew a slim pistol from ankle holster. My heart stuttered. He fired. Bullet cracked window behind, whizzed past my ear. I flung myself sideways, prototype still strapped to harness clattering against seat frame. The pilot screamed, trying to maintain altitude amid struggle. I lunged for Markham's wrist. Gun discharged again, bullet punching control console. Alarms whined. Pilot cursed, losing stabilizer. Markham elbowed my jaw. Stars exploded. I tasted blood. He pointed gun at Satchel. You'll never have them, he snarled and pulled trigger. A muffled pop, bullet punctured discs, electronics flared, fragments flew. Flash fire ignited inside Satchel, laptop battery. Flames whooshed. Smoke-filled cabin. Pilot yelled, "Fire in cockpit!" Helicopter pitched. We both crashed to floor as nose dipped. Altitude dropped fast. Alarms shrieked. Through cracked windshield, I saw patchwork farmland rushing up. Markham clawed toward emergency extinguisher. I locked arms around his torso, trying to wrench gun away. We rolled, punches landing meaningless in freefall chaos. Sudden jolt. Tail rotor clipped treetop. Cabin spun. Centrifugal force flung us against opposite walls. Satchel spewed burning shards. I crawled, grabbed prototype pack. Its LED blazing deep crimson now, critical heat. Pilot shouted, "Brace!" Helicopter plummeted toward hedgerow-lined field. Impact! Metal screamed. Everything shattered into a kaleidoscope of noise and light. Seat harness bit flesh. The world inverted, then blacked. I resurfaced to silence punctured by ticking metal. The cabin lay on its side, rotor blades twisted into wet earth. Rain pattered gently through torn fuselage. My head spun. I tasted copper. Markham groaned nearby, pinned under wreckage. Pilot unconscious, blood at temple. Prototype pack sat wedged in debris, LED flickering between red and purple. Unknown code state. I crawled, muscles shrieking, and eased it free. Plastic casing warm but intact. Satchel lay a meter away, contents charred but discs may be partially salvageable. Flames out. Markham stirred, eyes wild. "Help me," he rasped. Sirens faintly approached. Ambulance or police. I looked at him, then at Satchel, then at Prototype. My conscience warred. Leave him pinned, secure evidence, or save a life first? I chose life. I braced a lever bar of twisted frame, heaved. Metal shifted, freeing his torso. He coughed, clutching ribs. Blue lights flickered beyond hedgerow, first responders arriving. Markham's gaze, dazed yet lucid, settled on Satchel in my hand. He whispered, "If you expose everything, Spirally collapses, thousands lose jobs." I met his eyes. "You nearly killed to protect stolen tech." He closed eyes. "Just business." "Then business must evolve." I stepped out through torn fuselage into rain. Prototype against my heart, Satchel in other hand. Paramedics rushed, shouting questions. Police followed. Above, dawn finally broke. Soft gold bleeding across storm clouds, promising light. But consequences loomed. Stock market earthquakes, criminal charges, national security tribunals. And I, soaked, bleeding, clutching scorched evidence, stood at the center of the vortex. As medics ushered me toward ambulance, Prototype LED pulsed once more, color I'd never seen before, brilliant white becoming cool blue, the stabilizing signal. Yet stability was farther away than ever. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Rain-slick mud smeared my hospital gown, dried into stiff ridges by the time the morphine haze receded, and the world stopped tilting like a bad amusement park ride. A saline drip hissed beside me. The ceiling tiles were the sterile white of a blank patent form, spaces waiting to be filled. I blinked, tried to sit, and 100 microfractures of pain danced up my ribs. A low chair creaked. Asa's face came into focus, stubble shadowing the deeper lines of worry. "Easy, Margot," he murmured, voice hoarse from nights without sleep. "You're in Salisbury District. Minor concussion, 2 cracked ribs, spectacular bruises. Pilot stable. Markham? Well, he's alive. Under guard." Memories punched back, the helicopter's spiral, the Satchel exploding, choosing life over leverage. I swallowed. "Evidence?" Asa's tired eyes lit with something fierce. "Recovered. The discs looked toasted, but data forensics pieced 85%. Enough." Footsteps sounded outside the curtain. Iris slipped in, face pale with exhaustion, glasses fogged from drizzle still clinging to her hair. She carried my prototype cradled in gloved hands, housed now in a transparent polycarbonate quarantine box, a tiny glowing heart inside. "She's intact," Iris said softly. "DSTL is treating it like crown jewels, but it remains yours. They can't touch it without your sign-off." "Home Office classification attempt?" I asked. Iris grinned. "Shot down. Public backlash too hot. Your live stream hit 21 million views in 12 hours. Parliament's Science Committee already scheduled hearings." A tiny laugh scratched my throat. Victory, but with claws. "Rowan?" Asa rolled his eyes. "Holding press conferences about ethical investment. She's angling for hero status, but she kept her word. The vault files are mirrored on 3 continents, hash-chained and time-stamped. Nobody's squeezing that toothpaste back in." I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by the swirl of outcomes. Spirally stock must be free-falling, boardrooms in panic, lawyers drafting new strategies every minute. Yet in the hush of the ward, the only sounds were beeping monitors and distant rain-tapping windows, a lull after the hurricane. Group Captain Morgan visited at dawn's blush, formal hat tucked under her arm. She thanked me for averting significant national security compromise, promised full transparency as forensic investigations proceeded, and informed me that Markham faced charges ranging from industrial espionage to reckless endangerment. The pilot corroborated everything. CCTV from rooftops sealed the case. When she left, I felt strange emptiness. The dragon slain, what remained? Years of research sat in that glowing regulator, my life condensed into algorithms and fluidic channels. But now doors opened. Government grants, humanitarian use, education programs. A future bigger than revenge. Helix's term sheet lay on the bedside tray, revised again, 20 million seed, 49% equity, explicit clause that no board action could override my veto on social impact licensing. Rowan had scrawled a note. "You steer the ship, we fuel the engine. R." I signed. Recovery took weeks. Headlines ebbed from scandal to analysis, from outrage to case study. Spirely's board ousted Markham, filed Chapter 11, and auctioned non-tainted IP. Ironically, my new company, Teller Dynamics, purchased several patents at pennies. "Poetic," Asa said. Iris became CTO, her first act to open-source the low-power stabilization subroutine, the one that blinked the LED cobalt blue in the rec. Within a month, hobbyists adapted it to keep diabetic kids' insulin pumps from overheating during a heatwave in Spain. Messages flooded our inbox. One algorithm spared lives. I cried reading them. At the parliamentary hearing, I sat before oak panels and austere MPs. Cameras broadcast live. I told the story, every twist, every moral. The room fell silent when I finished. Then applause, unofficial, raw, human, rose in a chamber usually allergic to emotion. Legislation followed, strengthening whistleblower protections, barring private security from masquerading as police, mandating open procurement audits for tech used in national projects. One crisp October evening, Asa wheeled me onto the stage at the Royal Institution. Hundreds of young inventors watched as I powered a row of LEDs with the warmth from my palm, my regulator humming inside a translucent wearable patch. "Heat is a story," I said, voice steady, "and we can write the ending together." The theater erupted in neon bracelets blinking teal. The audience wore souvenir strips embedded with our chips, each pulsing to their heartbeat. Backstage, Rowan toasted with ginger ale. Contracts forbid her champagne around delicate electronics. Iris threaded arm through mine, eyes shiny. "First production run ships next week," she whispered. "Refugee camps in Jordan will test the vaccine coolers." I exhaled, chest loosening for the first time since that dreaded office action issued. The weight lifted, leaving something lighter than relief, purpose. Months later, on a dawn like the one after the crash, I stood on the balcony of my new, rent-controlled flat overlooking the Thames. Birds wheeled above water turned rose gold by sunrise. I flipped open my old engineering notebook, the cloth-bound one singed at the edges. On the last blank page, I drew a circle, then brushed a thumb over it, imagining heat flowing away in perfect balance. Behind me, my phone chimed with a million notifications. Interview requests, investor pings, students asking for mentorship. I'd answer them in time. For now, the city breathed, alive and indifferent, but somehow softer. I pressed record and spoke to my ever-growing audience. Innovation is risk. Integrity is riskier. But choose it anyway. It turns the hottest fire into the brightest light. I paused, smiling into the lens. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.